Welcome to Raising Special Needs Kids. Real conversations, real hope, and real stories for families walking the special needs journey. Our host is Monica Schmelter, sister to a brother with Down syndrome, and we're here to remind you, you're not alone.
Hello, I'm Monica, and this is the Raising Special Needs Kids podcast, and we're glad you're here. This podcast exists to bring special needs families together so that we can build community and connection, be able to help one another. And I'm doing this podcast in honor of my late brother Donnie, who had Down syndrome, and from whom I learned more life lessons, I think probably more from him than anybody here on this earth. And so my guest today is Christa Price. Christa, good to have you.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to. Let's start out with Christa, just a little bit about your family.
Sure. So my husband, Chad, and I, we've been married for 19 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It does feel like a big feat sometimes.
Yes, it does.
And we have 3 boys. Our oldest 2 are our biological sons. They are 16 and 14. And then a few years ago, about 4 years ago, we adopted, where our little guy came to us through the foster system, and we adopted him about 2 years into that journey. So we've had him a total of 4 years, and he is 6.
He's 6 years old. So when you fostered, did you ever think that you might adopt, or you were just fostering to foster?
We were just fostering to foster. We were hoping to be a bridge for reconciliation with families, but we also knew if we had a kid in our home long enough and we fell in love with them, that if the option came up to adopt them, that we probably would. We probably wouldn't be able to turn them away. Yeah. And it just so happened that Kyler was only our second placement. And then my husband weirdly had a dream that we were only to foster to become his forever family. And so it sort of has ended up that way, that we adopted him and have closed our home since to just really focus on his healing.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you have 2 older boys, 2 biological older boys. How did they feel about the adoption, like adding a new person into the mix?
There's been an ebb and flow there, to be honest. They love him and are excited for him, but just like any sibling set, he very much gets on their nerves. And so, but it's also been a very cool journey to show them some ways to step outside themselves and to look at the world a little differently, and to show them other sides of the world that they might not have ever seen that literally just ended up on our doorstep. Right. And so how to navigate that.
And, you know, it shapes your entire life. I know I probably would not have come to faith in Christ without my brother being born. And I just learned to be kinder and more compassionate, even as a person like in middle school and high school, because I saw how people respond. I saw the stares. I heard sometimes the mean things that were said. And so it caused me to really love him fiercely and just want to protect him from all of that. And our family, we wouldn't trade it for anything. Right? God gave us 52 wonderful years with him, and we're grateful.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is sibling rivalry, just like we would play tricks on my brother, and he pranked us as well. So.
Yes. It has been, we try to sometimes take the big boys off and let them go do big kid things with just us once a year or so, and like an out of town trip, I guess, and something like that. And then also Kyler being 6, he gets most of our attention because he needs it. And I think the teenagers sort of like that he gets all of our attention sometimes, because then we leave them alone so they can go do their thing.
Because, when you're a teenager like that, right, you're already grown. They know everything. So they're probably, they're probably really excited about that. Tell us a little bit about Kyler and his personality. And did you know he had special needs when he came into your home?
No, we knew when he came in that he had a very volatile first 2 years of life. And he was very rambunctious. I remember the first time he actually just walked from one place to another instead of running kind of frantically. We ended up having to move his bed into our bedroom because he just had such anxiety about being in a room by himself, for instance, or being away from us any length of time. And so we ended up finding out we're very good friends with some of his birth family and stay in contact with them. And so through that relationship, we found out that mom had done drugs during pregnancy, which has caused some of the issues. And then also the trauma in the first 2 years of life, just developmentally, have caused some of his issues. And And so we knew, I mean, our pediatrician even said the first time she saw him when he was 2, she said, there's a really good chance he's going to have ADHD. There's a really good chance you're going to see some of these behaviors play out. But let's just see where things go. And so we have done all manner of therapies, speech therapy and occupational therapy, psychological therapy for him and for us. He does horse riding lessons, has played in sports, all manner of things. And honestly, we were told by many people that he probably can unlock these parts of his brain that were locked up from the drug use during pregnancy and the trauma and become, quote, normal, right?
Whatever normal
Whatever
is.
that is,
Yeah.
I know.
Mhm.
But that he could unlock these parts of his brain. And it took me until I read a book that mentioned the silent needs instead of special needs. It was called The Silent Needs. And that's not the title of the book, but in the book it mentioned that. And what it was it's those times when the kids act neurotypical and then all of a sudden the switch is flipped and then they can become dysregulated very quickly. And that's what we found with Kyler was the issue with him. And so, sorry about that. And so it wasn't until I read that about silent needs that I actually started to put 2 and 2 together that he had special needs and that we needed to address his needs as such, as special needs.
Yeah, because you didn't know when you took him, so this is something that you realized along the way.
Yes, yes.
And when you talked about, all the counseling and the therapy, which I think is very important for everybody, did your older boys participate in that too, like a part of family counseling or?
Yes, they have. We had a therapist that would come to the house, and so she was able to either meet with just Kyler, the whole family, just the big boys, that sort of thing. So yes, we very much were in that space.
So you and your husband, in your marriage, you have those 2 older boys, so you had a normal family, whatever normal is,
Yes.
right? And so you know that journey, and then now you have a special needs journey as well. How different, if you had to compare those, how different are those 2 journeys?
Oh my goodness. Probably one of the biggest struggles has been that we did unknowingly segregate our family into the big boys and Kyler. The big boys, and that's what they referred to all the time. And our older boys are such good boys. They just make the best decisions. They still to this day act with honor and integrity. I'm knock on wood waiting for the day for them to cause trouble, and they just haven't. That's just not who they are.
That is wonderful.
It is amazing blessing. And I think now, knowing the journey God's put us on to bring Kyler into our lives, that is a gift he gave us, is not to have to worry about their journey so much. But it also caused this division of almost Chad and I, my husband, switching roles and switching views. Okay, now we're focused on Kyler. Now we're focused on the big boys. And so over the last several months, we've actually started to try to integrate them more, teach our older boys how to handle Kyler's behavior. Our 16-year-old should be able to babysit a 6-year-old, right? But we can't do that very often because of his dysregulation. It can become so dangerous physically sometimes. And so we don't want to leave that stress on our older boys.
Right, because even though they're older, they might not know how to handle it.
Right.
So does Kyler, does he get aggressive?
Yes, he can. He can get aggressive, very verbally aggressive for sure. Not quite so physically aggressive. He every once in a while will run or slam a door, stomp a foot. Doesn't so much hit or kick us necessarily, but if you do try to corral him sometimes, let's say, if you're out somewhere, he maybe will want to run and you have to physically just pick him up when you catch him, that sort of thing.
My goodness.
Yes.
So going out for a family dinner wouldn't necessarily be easy for you. Is that right?
Yes. Some nights it's fine and lovely experience. And other nights, one of us might leave the restaurant and go sit in the car with Kyler while everybody else finishes. So, and you never know which night's going to be which way. So
you're not able to identify what necessarily triggers him. It's just things just happen.
Yes.
How has he responded to your family, being adopted and brought into a family that loves and nurtures him when it seems like he didn't always have that?
We are his family. We realized this past summer that he had a mindset of, when do I go to my next family? And he asked that. He goes, when am I going to go to my next family? And we're like, well, buddy, this is it. We are your family. You're in this family forever. And he thought you just went on to another family periodically. And it's been very baffling to see glimpses like this. He came to us when he was a young 2-year-old, but yet there are memories in there that he can look back on and pull from that we know just have to be filed in there somewhere. And so there's a little bit of working on that. His self-worth in school this year, he started school in August, has really been damaged. And so when he's damaged there, he brings that out at home. And so he'll say, I'm going to leave this family, or I don't deserve to have a family. And so
That's heartbreaking.
Oh, it's the worst. It's so awful to hear. And because when he's regulated, he is so connected and so loving. He Saturday morning came into me and he goes, Mommy, you want to go on a date with me tonight? And
how sweet is that?
It was so sweet. And I said, well, where are we going to go? And he goes, I want to take you to Chuck E. Cheese. And so do you know what we did Saturday night? I said, well, can Daddy go with us on our date? And he goes, yeah, I think we can let Daddy go too. And so we go, and you know what his love was freedom. And so we put the little band on his arm. We loaded it up with tickets. We let him run and go play and do all the things. And we sat at a table by the door so we could see. And we brought a card game with us. And so my husband and I got to have some alone time playing the card game. Kyler got to go on his date, that he called it, to go play. And do you know, when we went to leave Chuck E. Cheese for one of the first times ever, he did not melt down on us and become dysregulated. And I think it was because he knew we were doing that for him at his request, but that he was also showing the love back to us and we were receiving it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, shows growth and, right, that he's developing and he's understanding things, and that you guys got to go to Chuck E. Cheese's. I love that you played cards there. Yes. And I always thought Chuck E. Cheese is so much fun for the kids, right? You just go from game to game, yes, and you get tickets and you win prizes, and it's a fun place.
Yeah. We all had a blast. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
So in school, you mentioned sometimes he feels damaged as a result of that. Is that because he doesn't do well in school, or is it the other children?
He gets overstimulated very easily. And so when he's in that environment, he can become dysregulated, and was in an environment. We've now, in the last week or so, have switched that environment, have actually switched teachers, which has been very helpful. And the teacher he's gone to is dual certified in special education and general education.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And the first week was amazing. But in the previous classroom, it was a teacher who hadn't been teaching for very long, and I think just didn't have the skill set or capacity. And so he would just stay in trouble a lot. And so when he would come home, there's actually he had a little orange suitcase, and he would come home, and we have a pretty long driveway. So we'd walk down to the bottom and get him off the bus. And on the walk back up, his little shoulders were just slumped, and I didn't get a smiley face again today, but I was doing so good, but I just didn't get my smiley face. And he'd go, he calls himself an idiot a lot. He goes, I'm just an idiot. And we would walk in the house, and he would go and he would get books and his blankie and he would pack this little suitcase, and he would say, I don't deserve to have anybody to live around me. I'm just going to go live in the woods by myself. And you talk about devastating, and just, we've got to fix this. He's 6. This mindset cannot take root. A lot of prayer against that taking root too. And but we also snuck the suitcase out. My husband took it to the dump.
Good for him.
Because we didn't want to trigger that anymore. No. But it was things like that where we finally went to the school and we said, we've got to figure something else out, because this is just too damaging. And I think we're on a good path now. But had we not gotten on this path, we probably would have pulled him and homeschooled him. Because at this point, his self-worth is worth more than education, honestly.
Well, absolutely. And you can always get an education.
Yes.
But your self-worth is your foundation for your life. So getting that in order so that he's got the right identity in Christ, as opposed to whatever messages that he might have received before he came to you. And also, I mean, he knows he's not getting the smiley faces, so he probably thinks he's a bad student. And who wants to go someplace if you don't do well there?
Well, and we started noticing him pulling away from us. And finally, I asked him one day, I said, buddy, do you feel safe at home anymore? And he said, no. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because you and daddy keep sending me back to school and they're mean to me there. And it dawned on me that he thought we knew all that was going on at school. You know, little kids think their parents know everything.
They
So
do.
that he thought we knew all that was going on at school and we didn't. But that we kept sending him back to this place that wasn't
Oh my
great for him.
gosh. And all children are not all, but a lot of them don't want to go to school.
Right.
But it's not that anyone's being mean to them there. They just would rather stay home. So I'm sure if he said he
Yes.
didn't want to go, that doesn't mean you're aware of what was said to him and how he's being treated. So I would think then getting him with a new teacher, has that turned around a little bit in your home?
Yes. Well, we kept him out of school for a few days right before Thanksgiving break, and just loved on him. Took him to the zoo, spent one-on-one time with him. Just really was never apart from him. And we had talks with our older boys too about, hey, we really need to focus on loving, being kind. My middle son has a car video game. And so he actually incentivized Kyler when he did go back to school and said, if you'll get 3 smiley faces, you can come home in the afternoon and play my game. And Kyler got him 3 days in a row so that he could go down and play that game.
I love that. See,
Yes.
that's like there's sibling rivalry, but there's also that love. And
Yes.
there's also that, little buddy, we want you to do well. And you get to play this video game, which would be so much fun. You also, Christa, you shared with me, I think just something very significant, that on 2 different occasions, people came up to you and said something about Kyler.
Yes.
What did they say?
They said they would seemingly show up out of nowhere. It was always out at a park, or one time was on the beach. And they said, there's something special about that little boy. God's got big plans for him. And then they would just leave.
So, and the 2 people, did they know each other, or this was 2 separate times?
2 separate incidents. It was actually 3 incidences. One was me by myself, one my husband by himself, and then one happened with us together at the beach. And that was when we connected all these dots of, wait, what? And this was in the foster journey, by the way. And it was always in moments where we were struggling immensely. It was several months apart, and really questioning God on, do we have it in us, Lord? Are we truly equipped to take this little boy and raise him and give him all that he needs? And these 3 ladies, different places. One was in Watertown, Tennessee, one was in Lebanon, Tennessee, and one was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So not even associated at all. And they came up and said the same thing. And he has a love for people. So even you mentioned him not wanting to go to school. Very rarely did he say he didn't want to go to school.
Oh, so he just thought you knew what was happening.
Yes, but he loves his people and loves his people so well. And so he wanted to go be around his people. And we've been at the park, and he has invited a little boy to church that their family came. I didn't initiate that. The mom came up to me and goes, hey, he just invited him to church. Where do you go to church? And so I told her, and they showed up that Sunday. And then you will not believe this, Monica. Yesterday, I go to pick him up from his class at church. And the teacher says to me, she goes, Kyler taught our class today. I
What?
said, yes. I said, what do you mean he taught the class? And she goes, really, he stood up and for about 3 minutes went on and on about the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus and how it all happened and how many days and all this types of things. So it really is pretty remarkable to see his own little journey and see that these people who have said there's something special about that little boy, that wasn't for him. That was the Lord sending them to tell us, hang in there.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So he taught Sunday school class.
Yes.
Now, how old is he again?
6.
I mean, I just almost have no words. That is so exciting.
Yes.
And you can see that God has special plans for him to stand up and be able to talk about all of that as a 6-year-old.
Yes. He actually accepted Christ on his own this summer, in the end of July. He came to me one Saturday morning and he says, Mommy, and he's asked questions about it. We never wanted to push, but we would answer his questions and then just go on about it. And if he had additional questions, come back and ask, So he wakes up and he says, Mom, you know what I did last night? And first I looked in his room because you never know. Like he could have swung off the curtains. He could have done anything. You never know. But it was all good in there. So I looked back at him and I was like, what did you do, buddy? And he goes, well, I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And I said, you did? And I said, well, what made you want to do that? And he goes, well, I want Jesus to help me control my brain. And I said, well, buddy. And I said, well, do you feel any different after you asked Jesus to come into your heart? And he goes, yeah, I had been crying in the night. And then after Jesus came into my heart, I stopped crying.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
And I said, well, tell me what Jesus did for you on the cross. He goes, oh, he killed my sins on the cross. I was like, okay.
He knew what he was doing. He
did.
knew the commitment. He understood.
He did.
So, Christa, I ask all of the guests on this podcast, because there's so many lessons to learn from having a special needs child, for God to entrust anybody with that journey. If you could just offer one takeaway, what would that be?
We oftentimes think, we like to say that God has called us to certain things. And it's very, that word calling can sometimes be interpreted a bit as a romanticized type term, that it's this beautiful, blissful journey that he's about to call you on or take you on. And my husband was actually given a word during this journey, and it was an assignment. And that it was an assignment from the Lord, and not that it's not beautiful. It's glorious. This little boy has broken us out of our shell, all four of us, the older boys and my husband and I. He's taken us to places that we never could have gone, but it has not been easy. And we have learned that God can sometimes assign you to something, and it doesn't always bring peace. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes we think that we're doing the right things because it's peaceful and there's blessings along the way, but sometimes it's just hard. And God says, I know, but I've put these shoes on you. I've equipped you for this. You can go and do this. And one of the things he showed us is how to turn what seem like mountains of problems into mountains of joy. And it's a really cool place to be, an experience to have with him, because you really do get to the end of yourself to where you have to rely on him and let him take you on this journey. And who knows, Kyler's 6. We have no idea where this is going to go. We have no idea how it's going to manifest itself in our big boys' lives as they go to lead their own lives. And now they have a new understanding of a world they never knew before. We don't know where it's going to take Chad and I, but it has definitely been a journey full of blessing and unrest.
Yeah. And I love that you shared, calling, it does sound just wonderful, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But how many people in the Bible did, when God called them, there were several times he said, and I'm going to show you how much you'll suffer for my name. Now, I mean, how exciting is that, right?
Right.
Like, let me stand up and I'll take double of that.
Right.
So we learn through problems and challenges. When we get to the end of ourselves, we're much more likely, right, to depend on the Lord because we can't do it. Mm-hmm. And yes. But that he's so faithful to you that he gave you words, that he gave your husband a dream, that God's been showing himself that he's ever present for you. But that doesn't mean that the journey is easy, right, and that you know where it's going to go.
Right. And we have no guarantee he will overcome any of these setbacks. And it may be the Lord lets him keep these setbacks so that he in his own journey will rely more on the Lord than he would if he didn't have them. Yeah. So he goes to school now most days with one of the little rubber Jesuses that you see all over the place in his pocket. and he knows Jesus is there to help him with his brain. Mm-hmm. And so we're equipping him on how to talk to Jesus on his own during his school day to help him. And it's really sweet to watch his relationship develop there.
That is so wonderful. I love that he carries the little Jesus, like that's like an object lesson. That's something that he can refer to during the day and remember that Jesus is helping him with his brain. That just sounds so intelligent to me, like such an insightful prayer to be saved, and then to say, Jesus, help me with my brain, that he recognizes that he has this challenge.
He is very insightful. He will get very frustrated with himself. Why can't I just listen? Why can't I control my body? Why can't I control my brain? And so he very much so is self-aware as to what his limitations are. And so now we're trying to equip him with how these tools to overcome those limitations.
Yeah, and that's so important as a special needs family. My brother was aware that he was different than everybody else. And so that can be hard to walk through and to help him feel good about who he was. But I do think he felt celebrated every day of his life, which is wonderful.
Yes.
To be loved like that. But it's just learn as you go, really.
Yes. And what's fun on the special needs journey is what works one day might not work the next day.
Exactly.
Or ever again,
Right.
for that matter.
Right.
So
It's
yes.
be ready for anything on any given day.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you for coming, Christa, and for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me.
So, as you know, I always share a funny story about my brother on each podcast, and I'm really hoping and praying that other parents will also submit stories or videos on their kids, because the special needs journey can be hard, but we need to find joy in it and to just be able to laugh and be able to see God's love in all the things. So today's story is this. My brother's favorite food was pizza. Okay, but he had a limit on how many pieces that he could have because he would just eat the whole pizza if you would let him.
Yes.
So there would be 2 slices of pizza on his plate and 2 on mine and 2 on my sister's. So when my mom and dad would turn their back, he would take a piece of our pizza and he would hide it in his lap in the napkin and then work it out till he could get it back up on the plate. And if you're wondering if I ever told on him, I never did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I let him get away with some things sometimes, but certainly love that memory of him taking my pizza.
Yes, I love that.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us today on the Raising Special Needs Kids podcast. The things that we talked about today, you will find links in the show notes. And please, if you have a story that you would like to share, we would love to hear from you. And if there's a funny story with your family or your child that you feel comfortable to share, we would love to be able to hear that and share that with others if you're okay with it. We're going to go for now. Now, we will see you next week on the Raising Special Needs Kids podcast.
Thank you for listening to Raising Special Needs Kids, a safe place for honest stories, practical help, and a whole lot of encouragement. We are so glad we're on this journey together, and we will see you next time.